Beatrice Mercer, ended her wedding supper before the justice of the peace had cleared the south gate. The prime roast lay on a silver platter at the center of the white-clothed table, browned at the edges and pink beneath the carving knife. It was enough for 4 people: Grant Mercer, his new wife, the 2 cattle buyers who had witnessed the marriage. Beneath the cottonwoods, 18 Red Prairie hands sat with neighbors and hired workers at rough plank tables. Their plates held gristle, stale corn cakes, and gravy thin enough to show the tin beneath it. Nearly 30 people had come to the wedding. Only 4 had been given food worth eating. Ivy Crowell stood beside Beatrice in green silk that had not gathered a fleck of flour. Her gaze passed over Beatrice's plain brown wedding dress, the untrimmed cuffs, and the sensible shoes dusted from the wagon road. "Mr. Mercer has chosen a practical bride," she said. It was offered as praise. Beatrice heard the place Ivy had assigned her, unadorned, grateful to have been chosen. She lifted the roast from the table. Ivy's smile vanished. "Mrs. Mercer, that is for the buyers." Beatrice carried the platter toward the black iron pot beside the kitchen fire. "I can count to 4. The ranch hands have already been served. They have been given something. A working meal." Beatrice set down the platter and reached for the carving knife. Conversation thinned behind her. Grant stood in the kitchen doorway, with his wedding coat still buttoned despite the August heat. He owned Red Prairie, its cattle, its horses, and enough land to make buyers travel through Amarillo for his business. Beatrice had been his wife less than an hour. This was the first thing she had done that might cost him standing. Ivy reached for the knife. Grant caught her wrist before her fingers touched Beatrice's hand. His grip stopped the motion, and nothing more. "It is my supper," he said. He released Ivy and stepped aside. "And my wife has the knife." No one cheered. Beatrice was glad. Approval could become another demand. She cut the roast into thick pieces and dropped them into the iron pot with beans, onions, and hominy. The best meat disappeared beneath food, meant for people seated farthest from the white cloth. Ivy stared as though Beatrice had thrown money into the stove. "My father will expect full payment." "He will be paid for what he brought," Grant said. Barton Crowell rose from the buyer's table. At 49, he wore polish the way other men wore dust. His silver watch chain crossed his vest, and his smile held the patience of a man accustomed to deciding what people needed before they spoke. "The arrangement was understood," he said. "Business guests receive a proper supper. Working men receive working fare." Beatrice stirred the pot. Beef and onions rose in the steam. "Do working men require different stomachs?" Barton addressed Grant instead. "Your bride has been on this ranch less than a day. She asked you." Grant removed his coat and folded it over a chair. "You may answer her." Barton's smile narrowed. "A ranch runs by rank." "Then rank should survive one common pot," Beatrice said. A woman hired from Cedar House stood near the pantry with flour on both sleeves and worry in her face. She had cooked the meal, but the quality of the meat had not been hers to choose. Beatrice held out the spoon. "Are there more beans?" The cook nodded. "2 kettles." Barton turned sharply. "Those are for tomorrow's boarders." The woman drew back. Grant crossed to the water barrel and lifted 2 buckets. "Tonight she works in my kitchen," he said, "if she wishes." The cook looked at Beatrice. "I wish." She brought the kettles. Hugh Bell appeared at the door with the pantry key in his hand. The Red Prairie foreman was 54, broad through the shoulders, and cut around the eyes by years of sun. "Salt pork on the second shelf," he said. "Dried peppers in the jar." He offered Beatrice the key. She took it, then kept her palm open. "For tonight." Hugh considered that. "For tonight." Grant set down the water. "What else?" "Wood plates, and people willing to carry food without deciding who deserves the better portion." He nodded and went to find them. The supper was repaired in less than half an hour because Beatrice did not let competence become solitary labor. The Cedar House cook added beans. Hugh cut salt pork. 2 ranch hands shifted benches beneath the cottonwoods. Grant hauled water and moved the buyer's table until it joined the others. When one buyer complained about dust near his boots, Grant offered him a chair inside. The man chose the common table. Barton remained standing while the roast became stew, and the division he had arranged became impossible to restore without taking meat from working men in public. Beatrice served the first bowl to the Cedar House cook. "You worked," she said. "You eat." The woman accepted it with both hands. Hugh took the second. Grant waited until the hands, guests, and hired workers had been served before filling his own plate. He sat between a cattle buyer and Eli Boone, a young rider whose collar had been mended twice. No speech, no demand for thanks. He ate the same meal. That mattered more than anything he might have said in the doorway. Ivy stopped beside Beatrice while the last bowls went out. "You think they will love you for this?" Beatrice wiped the ladle and set it down. "I did not ask them to. Men remember who feeds them. Then they may remember the woman from Cedar House who cooked half the supper." Ivy glanced toward the hired cook, now seated beside Hugh with a hot bowl in her hands. It was not the answer she had expected. Beatrice untied the apron someone had fastened around her waist and laid it beside the stove. One bowl remained. She carried it to the long table and chose an open chair near the center. Grant rose halfway, reaching to pull it out. Beatrice drew the chair back herself. He stopped. Then he let her. She sat while the food was still hot. Across from her, Hugh tasted the stew with grave attention. "Needs pepper. It is beside your elbow. Then it needs a man willing to reach." Beatrice slid the tin toward him. Laughter traveled around the table, ordinary and unforced. Grant did not study the men to see whether they appreciated the supper. He glanced at Beatrice once, long enough to ask without words whether she had what she needed. She lifted her spoon. Evidence, not trust. At the far end of the table, Barton placed his hat on his head. "A generous beginning," he said. "Beginnings can be expensive." Grant set down his cup. "Send an honest bill." Barton's gaze moved over the 18 ranch hands eating food Cedar House had expected to keep separate. "One dinner will not trouble me, Mercer. A hotel earns from rooms. Board. Seasonal crews waiting for a route. Foremen looking for riders. Buyers who prefer speaking with the man who knows who is available." One cattle buyer lowered his fork. The arrangement was familiar to him. Barton looked at Beatrice. "If Red Prairie begins feeding every hand who might otherwise wait in town, your wife has stepped into business she does not understand." Beatrice tasted the stew. "Then perhaps your business depends too much on hungry men." Barton's smile disappeared. He left without another word. The roast could not be lifted whole from the pot. The seating could not be restored without everyone seeing what it meant. And Beatrice could not return to the hour before Grant chose restraint over rank. She ate among workers and buyers on the same ground and understood the larger danger she had opened. Barton Crowell had lost more than control of one supper. He had seen a plain, practical bride make herself impossible to keep invisible. Now the question was what he would place in the hands of the ranchmen when food alone no longer brought them through his door. Sua. By Sunday morning, the pantry key had become the first thing Beatrice refused to own. She found it beside the stove where she had left it after the wedding supper. The black iron pot stood scrubbed and upside down on the work table. Beyond the screen door, August wind drove a thin line of dust along the porch. Grant sat at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee and no claim that the room now belonged to his wife. "Hugh says you should keep the key," he said. Beatrice picked it up but did not close her hand around it. "Hugh gave it to me for one meal. He would give you the stove, the pantry, and half the bunkhouse if it kept yesterday's gravy from returning. That is not the same as asking what I want." Grant nodded toward the empty chair across from him. "Then tell me," she sat. The coffee smelled strong enough to wake a dead fence post. "For 2 weeks I will plan 3 ranch meals each week. 3. Not every breakfast, dinner, and supper because I happen to know how." "Understood. The work is shared. Hugh keeps access. I keep access. Anyone assigned to help may use the stores." Beatrice crossed to the pantry door and fixed her attention on the bare strip of wall beside it. "Put a hook here. The key stays where both of us can reach it, not in anyone's pocket." Grant rose, opened a drawer, and found a small iron hook among nails and hinges. He drove it into the wall with the handle of a kitchen knife, then placed the key on it. "One place." "There," he said. Beatrice tested the hook. It held. "The men remain free to eat at Cedar House." "Yes. No man owes gratitude, loyalty, or another day's work because he eats here." Grant leaned one hip against the table. A meal is not a rope, no, and knowing how to cook does not mean you rise before dawn every day. No, praise does not turn work into duty. Beatrice studied him. You listened. I was trying to. Those are not always the same thing. Then correct me when they are not. He said it without wounded pride, which made the invitation harder to dismiss. Beatrice returned to her chair. Grant pushed one cup toward her. Your letters never said you could feed a crowd. The question had been waiting since the roast disappeared into the pot. She wrapped both hands around the cup. I left that out. Why? Because I did not want you to choose a cook and call her a wife. Grant did not hurry to deny the possibility. How many people? 26 boarders on a full evening. More when freight agents pass through. Did you have help? Sometimes a girl washed dishes. Most nights, no. What did the proprietor pay? A bed beneath the eaves, meals. A few dollars when business was good. Grant's brow tightened. You said meals. Beatrice watched steam leave the coffee. I served 26 plates while the meat was hot. Mine waited beside the wash basin until the dining room cleared. She could still see the rim of grease turned pale around the cold beef. If I asked to sit before the guests finished, he told me I ought to be grateful for the roof. Grant's hand settled flat on the table. He did not reach for hers. He praised the food where customers could hear him, she continued. In the kitchen, he reminded me what I cost. Beatrice, usefulness has been taken for gratitude before. The words came sharper than she intended. She left them sharp. Grant lowered his gaze to the untouched coffee. I cannot prove today that I will never make that mistake. No, I can tell you what I mean to do. Meaning is inexpensive. Then judge the doing. He pushed away from the table. There is another thing you should see before tonight. The east passage held 2 bedrooms facing one another across the narrow hall. Beatrice's trunk stood in the south room, still bearing dust from Amarillo. A washstand, chest bed, and straight-back chair filled the rest. Grant's books and clothes occupied the north room. Each door carried a brass lock on the inside. Beatrice touched the one on her door. The bolt slid cleanly into place. You had these fitted before I came? Last week. Why? Grant stayed outside the threshold. Because a closed door ought to mean closed. Most husbands would say the vows settled that question. Most husbands are not standing here. And if I refuse you tonight, then I know your answer for tonight. For a month? Then I know it for a month. A year? His jaw moved once. Then I know it for a year. Beatrice kept her hand on the brass bolt. You make it sound simple. I expect it will be difficult. That does not make your answer mine to change. He stepped back before she could close the door, giving her privacy without waiting to see whether she used the lock. On Monday morning, Barton Crowell arrived in a polished buggy with Ivy beside him and an account folded inside a leather case. Grant received them in the office. Beatrice stood near the open door, neither hidden nor placed beside his chair for display. Barton laid the bill on the desk. 32 meals, premium roast, hotel service, linen, transport, damages caused by improper handling. Grant read the total. What was damaged? The roast was cut apart and mixed with beans. It was eaten, not as prepared. Grant drew a pencil from the desk. Food delivered, cook's labor, and wagon transport will be paid. Presentation damages will not. Ivy's gaze moved over Beatrice's plain dress. A practical wife may enjoy taking charge of a kitchen, but hired men should not be taught that household indulgence alters their station. Beatrice answered before Grant could. Their station did not change. Their supper did. You embarrassed my father before buyers. Your father served those buyers food he would not serve the men tending their cattle. Barton turned toward Grant. Will she speak in every business matter? Grant crossed out the invented charges. When you address her, I expect she will answer. He handed the corrected bill back. Barton's smile held no warmth. If Red Prairie feeds its own seasonal hands, Cedar House loses more than dinners. Men waiting for work-fill rooms, they buy board. Foremen come to me because I know who is available. Buyers ask which crews can be assembled. Beatrice had returned the pantry key to its hook before entering the office. She could picture it hanging in the kitchen, available without belonging to anyone. The ranch meals are a 2-week trial, she said. The men may still eat at Cedar House. "And you expect them to choose freely after you feed them?" Barton asked. "I expect their plates not to become promises." Ivy lifted her chin. "Men remember who feeds them." "Then Cedar House has had 11 years to be remembered kindly." Barton closed the leather case around the corrected bill. "Saturday will answer that." He left with Ivy before Grant asked what he meant. That night, after the ranch settled, Grant opened the lower office cabinet and removed a plain wooden box bound with a narrow leather strap. 11 letters lay inside, their folds softened from handling. Beatrice's photograph rested beneath them. Between the first letter and the second, the pressed blue cornflower still held color at its center. In that first letter, she had written that few blue things grew near the boarding house, and she thought he might keep one. He had not known then that the same woman who sent him a useless flower could feed 26 people and survive on the plate no one wanted. He returned the cornflower between the pages and closed the box. Beatrice did not see him. By Friday evening, word had reached the bunkhouse that Cedar House would serve roast beef, potatoes, preserves, and coffee the next day. Grant made no order. Beatrice asked no promise. All 18 Red Prairie hands began saddling for town before sunrise, and no one yet knew which meal they meant to choose. Sua. By the time the Cedar Wash church bell struck 11, every Red Prairie hand had ridden past Barton Crowell's dinner board without touching a rein. The sign stood outside Cedar House in fresh white paint: roast beef, new potatoes, peach preserves, coffee. Hugh Bell read each line as his horse carried him by. Then he touched 2 fingers to his hat and kept going. Sam Reddick followed, Orrin Pike after him. Eli Boone turned his head long enough to see Barton standing beneath the hotel gallery, with his silver watch chain bright against his vest. Even Eli rode on. Grant and Beatrice had parked the supply wagon beyond the general store, far enough from Cedar House that no one could claim they had blocked the entrance. The tailboard rested on 2 wooden crates. Smoked beef, beans, pickles, and coffee waited beneath clean cloths. 2 trays of apple turnovers stood at one end. A small card pinned beside them read MRS, Nettie Vale, backer. Beatrice had paid Mrs. Vale that morning and left her name where every man could see it. Work deserved the right name. Grant stood near the team with one hand on the wagon wheel. He had said nothing when the riders left Red Prairie. He said nothing as they entered town. Hugh dismounted first. His gaze moved from the wagon to Cedar House down the street. "You said no man loses standing if he eats at the hotel." "He does not," Beatrice said. Hugh faced Grant. "With you, a man's dinner is his own affair, even with Crowell counting, especially then." Hugh searched the answer for a hidden condition. Finding none, he took a tin plate. The other 17 still had to decide. Eli swung down next. "Crowell has peach preserves." "Mrs. Vale made apple turnovers," Beatrice replied. "Apples aren't peaches, then you face a difficult choice." Eli smiled and reached for a plate. Sam came behind him, then Orrin. Saddles collected along the rail until all 18 horses stood in the shade, and every Red Prairie hand had joined the line. No one declared loyalty. No one mocked the hotel. They chose food and carried it beneath the cottonwoods, behind the general store. Their lack of ceremony made the choice harder to dispute. Beatrice served the first pan, then handed the spoon to a broad rider named Wade. He stared at it. "How much?" "Enough to cover the bottom of each plate. A man may come back." "That's the rule?" "Today." Wade began serving. Orrin took the coffee pot before Beatrice could pour more than 6 cups. Eli carried the turnover trays. Grant waited at the end of the line and received the same smoked beef and beans as everyone else. No hidden plate waited for him. He sat on an overturned crate between Sam and Eli. Beatrice chose a place on the wagon tailboard and began eating while the food was hot. Hugh broke a turnover in half. Steam lifted from the apples. "Mrs. Vale knows her trade." "Tell her," Beatrice said. "I intend to tell the town." Barton crossed the road before the men had finished their first plates. Ivy followed several steps behind, holding her green skirt above the dust. Barton stopped beside the wagon and studied the meal as though it were cattle brought into a sale pen without his leave. "A picnic," he said. "Dinner," Beatrice replied, "without charge, paid from the ranch household money." "Then Mercer is buying the men's custom." Grant wiped coffee from the rim of his cup. "They are not customers." Any man eating food another person bought is someone's customer. Hugh swallowed a bite of turnover. Mrs. Vale was paid. Barton ignored him. You cannot keep men by filling their stomachs. Grant set his plate on his knee. I don't intend to keep them that way. A wise answer this season. What does that mean? Other outfits are hiring. Other outfits always hire, not always with money ready before departure. Several men lowered their eyes to their plates. Barton noticed. So did Beatrice. Broken Spur needs riders north of Amarillo, Barton continued. Shorter work than Mercer's South gather. Board in town while the crew forms. Money for a man willing to hear the terms. Hugh leaned against the wagon. Which foreman? Daniel Voss. What wage? Near what a sound rider expects. Eli called from beneath the tree. That isn't a number. Barton's attention settled on him. Come to Cedar House Tuesday. I will give you one. Grant did not turn toward Eli. He did not ask whether the young man meant to go. Barton glanced along the line of hands. Cedar House has lodged seasonal crews for 11 years. Men wait there because foremen know where to find them. Buyers come to me because I know which riders are free and which outfits can assemble a crew. And the rooms fill while they wait, Hugh said. Rooms are meant to be filled. Meals sold, Beatrice added. Meals are meant to be sold. Then say what is being bought before a man eats. Barton's smile thinned. You believe every custom hides a trick? No, only the ones that become debts after the plate is empty. Ivy lifted the corner of the turnover cloth. Beatrice drew it back from her fingers and covered the tray. Mrs. Vale's crust has improved, Ivy said. She would likely appreciate hearing that. She may appreciate Cedar House buying from her again. Then pay her. Ivy's eyes sharpened. Barton faced Grant. Your wife has been here 1 week. She should take care before teaching hired men that every offered kindness has a price. Your board does have a price, Beatrice said. You just said so. Hugh hid a smile behind his cup. Barton's patience cracked at the edges. There is nothing shameful in earning money from rooms, meals, or introductions. No, Beatrice said. Not when the terms stay the same before and after. One of the cattle buyers from the wedding emerged from the general store and slowed when he heard her. Barton saw him. His voice changed at once, becoming smoother. Broken Spur's offer is lawful work. Any Red Prairie man is free to hear it. He is, Grant said. And if one of them leaves you, then he leaves. No hard feeling. That depends on whether he lies to me, not whether he goes. Barton's eyes moved to the ranch hands again. Supper is served at 6. Any man wanting a proper dining room is welcome. Hugh looked at the wagon, the cottonwood shade, and the men eating from tin plates. Do walls improve chewing? Laughter followed Barton across the road. Ivy stayed long enough to face Beatrice. They will tire of beans. Then someone else can cook. You say that now. I said it before they arrived. Ivy's gaze traveled along the men and paused on Eli. Then she turned away. The meal ended without a pledge. Men returned plates, collected mail, and entered the general store for tobacco, needles, salt, and boot nails. Beatrice paid Mrs. Vale for the turnovers and ordered another tray for the next Saturday meal. Grant bought lamp oil, harness rivets, rope, and a sack of salt. He did not ask a single rider whether he planned to visit Cedar House after dark. On the road home, the 18 men spread ahead of the wagon, in a loose line of horses and dust. Beatrice sat beside Grant with the empty coffee pots secured beneath the seat. Barton expected you to forbid them from hearing Broken Spur, she said. Yes. Did you want to? Yes, the answer came without polish. Why didn't you? Grant kept the team steady. A man who stays because I close every other road has not chosen Red Prairie. That may cost you. It may. You have not lost anyone yet. I spent the whole dinner wondering which man would ride back tonight. Did you decide? No. Good. Grant glanced at her. Why? Because if you guessed, you might begin punishing a man before he had chosen anything. He looked ahead at Eli, riding near Hugh. You know that from experience. I know what suspicion can collect from an innocent person. Grant heard what she did not explain and left it untouched. That night, after Cedar House served its last supper, Barton locked his office door and drew a shallow box from beneath the account desk. Ivy stood beside the lamp. 24 red cedar discs lay inside, each the width of a silver dollar. One side carried the burned initials CH, the other red trail board above a separate number. Beneath them rested a folded note from Daniel Voss. Barton opened it only far enough to expose 3 lines. Experienced riders, interested in hearing terms, names to be accepted by Voss. Nothing on the page called the tokens agreements. Ivy picked up 1 disc. Will they come? Some, and if they only listen. Barton straightened the row of red cedar pieces. Then Cedar House will have fed men waiting to decide. He separated number 19 from the others and slipped it into his vest. Tuesday, he said. The token vanished beneath his coat, leaving an empty place in the box. By then, the question was no longer whether Red Prairie's men preferred ranch food. It was what one of them might accept when supper came with the promise of money. Sewer on Tuesday morning, Eli Boone rode into Cedar Wash for harness rivets, lamp oil, and Hugh Bell's mail, and returned to Red Prairie carrying a piece of red cedar that felt heavier than the supplies tied behind his saddle. Barton Crowell found him outside the general store. You asked for a number, Barton said. I asked what Broken Spur pays. Near Red Prairie wages. $8 a head once you agree directly with Daniel Voss. Eli shifted the folded supply list in his hand. A head means taken back later? Voss will state the terms. How long is the work? Shorter than Mercer's South gather. How much shorter? Barton smiled toward 2 merchants passing on the boardwalk. A man can ask questions all day and still know less than he would after sitting down with the foreman. He nodded toward the narrow passage beside Cedar House. Eli followed because $8 could do what good intentions had not. His 14-year-old brother worked near an Amarillo feed store and slept in the loft above grain sacks. Eli had promised to send enough money for a proper room before winter. So far, he had sent 2 small bills and a letter telling the boy to keep his boots dry. Behind the hotel kitchen, Barton took a red cedar disc from his vest. One side carried the burned initials, CH. The other read trailboard above the number 19. What does it buy? Eli asked. A week of board here while you hear Broken Spur's terms. I don't need a bed. Ranch is 12 miles. Then use the meals. Does taking this mean I've hired on? No, Barton placed the disc on Eli's open palm. It says you're willing to listen. Nothing else? Nothing else. Eli closed his fingers around it. I haven't promised work. Of course not. Barton stepped toward the kitchen door, then stopped. Still, a decent man doesn't take another man's board and walk away as if hospitality means nothing. Eli opened his hand again. Number 19 lay against his skin. You said it only meant listening. It does. Then why am I already being told what I owe? Barton's face remained pleasant. I am speaking of manners, not law. I haven't eaten. No one said you had used a room. Not yet. Taken money? You know you haven't. Then I don't owe Cedar House anything. Barton's smile cooled. Come here, Voss, before you decide what you owe anyone. Eli slipped the token into his vest. The words had changed after the wood crossed into his hand. That was plain enough. What remained unclear was whether returning it would make him look frightened, dishonest, or both. He rode home under a hard blue sky, the token knocking once against a brass button whenever his horse broke into a trot. He told himself he could hand it back. He told himself listening was not leaving. Both were true. Neither settled him. The trouble came before sundown. Hugh had 3 men moving yearlings through the north corral, while Eli helped turn a red steer away from the gate. The animal broke sideways. Eli cast too soon. The rope snapped tight across his palm before he released it. Heat tore through the skin. Hugh caught the line and hauled it free. Sit down. Eli flexed his fingers. A narrow raw stripe showed beneath the dirt. It's a burn. Then sit down with a burn. Beatrice was crossing from the kitchen with a bucket when she saw Hugh point Eli toward the porch. She set the bucket aside. Bring him here, Mrs. Mercer. I can wash it. With which hand? He sat on the step. Beatrice brought a basin, soap, clean water, and strips of boiled cloth. Grant came from the barn while she poured water over Eli's palm. He stopped near the pump. Beatrice did not call him closer. This will sting, she said. I know. Good. Then neither of us is surprised. Eli almost smiled. When she worked soap into the burn, his injured hand jerked. The red cedar token slipped from his vest, struck the porch boards, and rolled against Beatrice's boot. The initials CH faced upward. Eli reached for it with the burned hand and failed. Beatrice did not bend down. You dropped something. He picked it up with his left hand, a board token. From Cedar House? Yes, Mum. She rinsed the soap away. Did you eat there? No. Use a room? No. Take money? No. Sign anything? No. What did you agree to? Eli's thumb moved over the burned number to hear Broken Spur's terms. What did Barton say before you accepted it? That the token meant listening. Bored while I listened. No job. Beatrice folded cloth over the burn. And after, that a decent man doesn't take hospitality and walk away. Hospitality you have not used. Yes, why keep it? Eli stared toward the corral. $8 a head. After you hire with Voss. That's what Crowell says. Do you want Broken Spur? I want the money. Beatrice tied the bandage. Those are different answers. My brother's 14. Works near Amarillo. He's sleeping over a feed store because a room cost more than he can keep. The admission came out low and fast. Eli looked toward Grant, still beside the pump and too far away to hear. Mr. Mercer may put me off the ranch if he knows. Has he ever dismissed a man for hearing another offer? Not that I've seen. Held earned wages from someone who left? No. Then Barton has told you what Grant might do without knowing it himself. Eli turned number 19 in his left hand. Are you going to tell him? Not tonight. Relief crossed his face. She did not let it settle into escape. You will tell him tomorrow evening. And if I don't, then I will tell Grant someone is approaching his crew before the fall gather. I will not give your name unless keeping it would place someone in danger. You'd keep my name from your husband. For one day. Long enough for you to speak first. Why? Beatrice gathered the stained water and cloth. Because fear does not give me ownership of your truth. Eli looked at the token again. Tomorrow evening. Before supper. Yes, Mom. Hugh shouted from the corral that Eli would work gates and stay clear of rope until the hand closed without pain. Eli rose and went toward the bunkhouse. Grant waited until the door shut behind him before crossing the yard. Minor? He asked. Minor if Hugh keeps him from rope work and the fastest horses. He will. Grant glanced toward the bunkhouse. There is more. Yes. Does it threaten him? Not before tomorrow evening. The ranch. Possibly. Grant's jaw tightened. Is it yours to tell? No. He looked toward the dark bunkhouse windows, then back at Beatrice. When? He has until before supper tomorrow. Grant nodded once. Then I will wait. You do not know what you are waiting for. You know enough to name the hour. He lifted the empty basin from her hands and carried it toward the pump. He asked nothing else. On Wednesday evening, Eli entered the office with his hat in one hand and token number 19 in the other. Beatrice stood near the open door. Grant closed the wage ledger. Sit if you want. Eli remained standing. Barton Crowell gave me this yesterday. Said it means a week's board while I hear Broken Spur's terms. He placed the token on the desk. Grant read the burned words without touching it. Did you agree to work? No, sir. Eat there? No. Use a room? No. Take an advance? No. Sign your name? No. Who spoke for Broken Spur? No one. Crowell said Daniel Voss would. What wage near Red Prairies? How long shorter work? Route north of Amarillo. Deductions from the $8. Crowell said Voss would explain. Grant leaned back. Every answer made the offer more real and the obligation less clear. Do you want to leave? Eli looked down at his bandaged palm. I want to help my brother. That is not quite the same question. It's the answer I have. Grant let that stand. Anything else? Crowell said 8 other Red Prairie men were listening. Did you see them? No, sir. Know their names? No. Then we know what he claimed. Nothing more. Grant pushed the token back across the desk. Keep it. Eli stared at him. You don't want proof. Your word proves he approached you. What if he says this means I agreed? Then he can say what you agreed to before he put it in your hand. Grant left the cedar on Eli's side of the desk. It is yours until you decide otherwise. Eli closed his left hand around number 19. Grant had not searched a pocket, taken the token, closed the road, or asked for gratitude. Yet Barton's reach had still widened. By the next sunrise, Red Prairie would have to decide whether to answer 9 rumored offers with higher wages, harder rules, or the patience to learn what Barton was truly selling. Sua. By sunrise Thursday, Grant had written a higher wage beside the name of every man Barton Crowell might take. The ledger lay open across the office desk, its ruled columns interrupted by fresh pencil marks. 3 proposed increases sat in the margin. Each was large enough to weaken the pull of an $8 advance. Beatrice stopped in the doorway with the pantry count beneath one arm. "You are bidding against him." Grant did not deny it. Outside, Hugh Bell called for riders to bring the remuda through the east gate. Eli Boone crossed the yard with his bandaged hand held clear of a water bucket. Red Prairie had begun its day. Grant was still trying to buy back a threat that had not yet taken shape. "If Crowell reaches 9 men before the fall gather, I may not have enough riders for the South work," he said. "Then learn what Broken Spur offers. I know they have ready money. You know Barton says they do." Grant set down his pencil. "Waiting may cost me the rail delivery." Beatrice entered and placed the pantry count beside the ledger. "Pay what the men have already earned. Find out the wage, route, length of work, deductions, and who can hire them. Then decide whether Red Prairie pays fairly. And if another outfit speaks first, that does not make your answer fairer." Grant glanced at the names and figures. "You object to a raise?" "I object to fear setting it. Men are free to take the better wage." "Yes. They should also know whether the wage became better because their work was worth more or because another man frightened you." The words left no soft place to hide. Grant turned the pencil between his fingers. "You have seen an employer do this. I have seen men become valuable the day they found another door." Beatrice looked at the proposed increases. Some stayed. None forgot what had finally made them worth the money. A knock struck the frame. Hugh entered with Sam Reddick, Orrin Pike, and Eli. Sam had worked Red Prairie 6 years. Orrin had worked there 4. Eli remained near the wall, the red cedar token hidden in his vest, and his right hand wrapped in clean cloth. Hugh shut the door. "They have heard more." Grant turned the sheet of proposed raises face down. "Sit if you want." Only 2 chairs faced the desk. Sam took one. Orrin remained standing beside it. "Broken Spur has a real fall delivery," Sam said. "North of Amarillo, then into rail pens." "Who told you?" Grant asked. "Crowell. Did Daniel Voss speak with you?" "No." Orrin rolled his hat brim between his hands. "Crowell says the base wage is near Red Prairie's. $8 a head after a man agrees with Voss. Board at Cedar House while the crew forms." "How many days of board?" "He didn't say." "How long is the work?" "Shorter than ours." "Which route?" "Only north of Amarillo." Grant leaned back. "Will the $8 come out of later pay?" Orrin shook his head. "Crowell said Voss would settle that." Beatrice looked towards Sam. "What does Barton receive?" Sam hesitated. "Rooms and meals, same as always. Anything from Broken Spur. A little consideration if a man he introduces hires on." Grant's attention sharpened. "For bringing a rider to hear terms." "Not as I heard it," Sam said. "Only if the rider takes the work." Hugh folded his arms. "Crowell fills rooms while men wait, then earns again if one signs. And buyers keep asking him which crews are sound," Beatrice said. "He is paid while a man waits, paid if the man hires and listened to when he says a ranch may be short." Orrin nodded toward the face-down paper. "You going to raise wages?" Grant turned it over. "Not this morning." "Why?" "Because I do not know what I am answering yet." He drew one firm line through the first increase, then the second and third. "Any balance already earned will be settled before a man is asked to choose another job." Sam's brows rose. Before he gives an answer, "The work is already done." Grant opened the wage ledger to the carried balances. "Hugh will read every figure with the man it belongs to." Eli shifted near the wall. "Crowell says men who leave may not see their last pay." Grant looked at him. "Crowell does not keep this ledger." Hugh cleared his throat. "There is one more thing. Latham mentioned a complaint last spring. Another rancher said Cedar House Board was called part of a work understanding after one of his hands had already eaten and slept there." "Did the man sign?" Beatrice asked. "Not that Latham knew." "Did the buyer act on it?" "No. Too little to prove and no one willing to press it." Grant closed the ledger halfway. "Then Barton has used the same fog before." "Maybe," Hugh said. "Or the rancher blamed Crowell after losing a hand." "Latham did not know." Beatrice nodded. "Then we keep to what can be shown." Sam and Orrin left with Hugh. Eli stayed. After the door closed, he took token number 19 from his vest and laid it on the desk. The red cedar disc showed trail board above the burned number. "Mrs. Mercer, I want you to keep this." Beatrice did not reach for it. "Why?" "Crowell says carrying it means I owe him." I know I haven't eaten or taken money. It still feels like a promise in my pocket. Giving it to me does not decide whether you stay. I know. It does not erase anything you truly agreed to. I agreed to listen. Nothing more? Nothing. Beatrice looked at Grant. Paper. He opened the center drawer, placed a clean sheet on the desk, and moved away from it. She wrote the date across the top, September 1, 1892. Beneath it she wrote Eli Boone and token number 19. Then she recorded only what could later be proved. Eli had accepted the token after agreeing to hear Broken Spur's terms. He had used no board, meal, or room. He had taken no money, signed no hiring paper, and promised no work. "Read it," she said. Eli bent over the page. His lips moved along the longer line. "That's right. You may change anything that is not. It's right. Can you sign with your left hand?" He nodded. Grant turned the ink bottle toward him but did not guide the pen. Eli signed with uneven letters. Beatrice folded the account around the token, warmed sealing wax over the office lamp, and closed the packet along 3 edges. Across the front she wrote Eli Boone, number 19. September 1, 1892. "This remains yours," she said. "I hold it because you asked. You may take it back whenever you choose." "Where will it be?" "Upper right drawer." Grant stepped farther from the desk before she opened it. Beatrice placed the sealed packet inside and shut the drawer. "You won't read it?" Eli asked him. "I heard what you said yesterday. The exact paper is not mine. Even if Crowell claims the token proves I hired on, then Crowell can explain his claim without my stealing your property to answer him." Eli's shoulders eased. "Thank you." Grant did not accept the words as payment. "Keep the bandage dry." Eli left. Beatrice returned the sealing wax to the drawer. "You know the facts in that packet," Grant said. "I wrote them. I know them because Eli spoke. I do not know the wording. That is how it should remain unless he gives permission." Grant nodded. "It will." Late that afternoon, a rider from Cedar Wash brought 2 envelopes. The first carried Mr. Latham's hand. Grant broke the seal and read the page once before handing it to Beatrice. Barton had warned the buyer that Red Prairie might lack enough experienced riders for its fall delivery. Latham would hold the planned rail place only if Grant could offer reasonable assurance of a workable crew. At the bottom, he added that the old complaint about Cedar House Board made him unwilling to rely on second-hand hiring terms again. He wanted Daniel Voss to speak for Broken Spur himself. "Barton is selling the uncertainty he created," Beatrice said. Grant folded the letter. "And Latham is listening because the herd cannot wait on principles." The second envelope bore Ivy Crowell's narrow script. Cedar House invited Mr. and Mrs. Mercer to a cattle buyer's supper on Thursday, September 8th. The final line was darker than the rest. Mrs. Mercer's views on household influence and the keeping of hired men would be of particular interest. Beatrice laid the invitation beside Latham's warning. Barton had not yet taken one Red Prairie rider. He had already arranged a room where Grant could deny her counsel, defend it, or let other people decide what place his plain wife was permitted to hold. Sua. By Wednesday evening, the invitation from Cedar House had become more dangerous than Barton's letter to the buyer. The kitchen trial had been reviewed 3 days earlier. 3 planned ranch meals each week would continue. Hugh Bell and the assigned helpers would share the work. The pantry key remained on its iron hook beside the pantry door. Any hand who preferred Cedar House could ride there without losing standing. The arrangement survived because Beatrice was not required to rescue every poor batch of biscuits or every pot of beans that lacked judgment. That evening, Hugh stood over a kettle prepared by 2 ranch volunteers and frowned at the surface. "One forgot the salt," he said. "The other found it." Beatrice tasted the broth. "How much did he find?" "Near all of it. Add water." "I was hoping you would say throw it out. You would only have to cook again." Hugh considered the labor involved and carried the kettle toward the stove. Outside the screen door, Eli Boone crossed the yard with a saddle blanket under his left arm. The bandage had come off that morning. A red line still marked his palm, and Hugh had not yet returned him to the fastest rope horses. Grant watched Eli pass, then took Ivy Crowell's invitation from his vest. "You do not have to attend tomorrow," he said. Beatrice covered the diluted beans. "If I remain here, Barton will say I was afraid to answer. He will. If I go, Ivy will decide where I sit before I enter the room. She may. You offer poor comfort. Grant rested the invitation on the kitchen table. I thought you preferred the truth. Truth need not arrive without manners. I am still learning which chair belongs to manners. The answer drew a brief laugh from her before she could stop it. Grant heard it and did not reach for more. Hugh carried the kettle away, muttering that a man could survive hard cattle more easily than kitchen instruction. When the door closed, Grant said, "There is something I should show you before tomorrow." He led her into the office. The upper right drawer remained shut. Eli's sealed packet lay inside, its wax unbroken around token number 19 and the signed account. Grant passed the drawer without touching it. He opened the lower cabinet and removed a plain wooden box bound with a narrow leather strap. Beatrice recognized her handwriting before he loosened it. 11 letters lay inside, their creases softened from handling. Her photograph rested beneath them. Between the first letter and the second lay the pressed blue cornflower she had sent in April. Gray had taken the edges, the center remained blue. Beatrice sat. "You kept it. You told me I might. I thought you would throw it away after reading the page." "Why?" "It served no purpose." Grant placed both hands on the desk, leaving the flower untouched. "That may be why I kept it." She remembered the hard strip of earth beside the boarding-house wash line where the flower had grown. Grant's letters had been full of dust, cattle, ledgers, rails, and dry grass. She had wanted one blue thing among them. "Why between those 2 letters?" she asked. "The first is where you sent it. The second is where you asked what happened to wages when a ranch owner made a bad decision. You said wages came before profit." "They should." "Should?" I had not yet been tested. Beatrice studied the faded petals. "Did my photograph warn you I was plain?" Grant glanced at it. She wore a dark dress with no trim, her hair drawn back severely because the photographer had charged extra for another sitting. "It showed a serious woman in a plain dress," he said. "That is a courteous answer. It is the answer I have. And the letters, they showed why she was serious." He lifted the second letter by one corner. "You asked whether an owner could call hunger bad luck when the mistake had been his. You asked whether a man who paid late still deserved to call himself fair. Those are not flattering questions." "No." "Yet you continued writing. I began waiting for your letters." Grant returned the page to the box. "Before I knew what that meant." The words did not ask her to name the feeling for him. Beatrice touched the edge of her photograph. "You did not know I could feed 26 people." "No. So you did not marry a cook." "I married the woman who kept asking what happened to people after powerful men finished explaining themselves." Warmth reached her, then caution followed. Private attention was not public courage. Tomorrow would measure the difference. Grant seemed to know it. He replaced the cornflower between the letters, fastened the leather strap, and returned the box to the lower cabinet. He did not offer to kiss her. He did not ask what the letters had earned. The next afternoon they left Red Prairie at 4 and reached Cedar Wash as the worst heat began to loosen its grip. Dust coated the wagon wheels and the hem of Beatrice's brown dress. Cedar House glowed with lamplight when Grant handed the team to a stable boy. Ivy met them in green silk. "Mercer, the buyers are already in the private dining room." Her gaze moved over Beatrice. "Mrs. Mercer, we have placed you with Mrs. Talbot and the minister's sister." "Are they buying cattle?" Beatrice asked. Ivy's smile held. "No." "Then why would I sit with them during a discussion of Red Prairie's fall delivery? The business table is nearly full." Through the open doorway, Beatrice saw one empty chair beside Mr. Latham. Another had been placed against the wall between 2 older women. Grant saw both. His fingers closed once at his side. "We should not delay supper," he said. He offered Beatrice his arm and escorted her to the wall seat. The failure was small enough for every polite person present to pretend it had not happened. That made it worse. Beatrice sat without asking him to repair what he had already chosen. Barton guided the meal through cattle prices, rail schedules, and the condition of the Red Prairie herd. Ivy asked Beatrice whether she preferred lace curtains or plain muslin. Beatrice answered in short sentences and listened to the center table. Mr. Latham eventually set down his fork. "Mercer, do you still expect enough riders for the South gather?" Barton answered before Grant could. That depends on whether the men may hear lawful offers without household pressure. Grant's shoulders stiffened. My hands may hear any offer. Yet men who once ate here now pass the door. They were not ordered past it, Beatrice said from the wall. Barton turned toward her. You appear certain. I was there. A meal can influence a man. Then Cedar House has had 11 years to use that influence well. Latham folded his napkin. Have the Red Prairie hands been paid current? Grant began to speak, but Beatrice already had the buyer's attention. Old balances are being settled before any man is asked to choose another outfit. Why before? Latham asked. Because the pay is already theirs. Barton leaned back. A household opinion. It became ranch business when you warned buyers. The crew was unstable before the men had chosen anything. A fork touched china. No one stopped eating, but the room listened. Latham turned to Barton. Did you send that warning? I reported a risk. One that earns you rooms while men wait and consideration if they hire, Beatrice said. I earn money for completed introductions. Then you profit when a rider looks uncertain. Barton's face hardened. Mrs. Mercer has been in Texas less than a month and already believes she understands the keeping of hands. Beatrice rested both palms on the table. I understand a man should know the price before he eats. Grant watched her from the center table. He did not interrupt. He also did not say that the wage order had come from her judgment. The empty chair beside him remained empty. After supper, while Ivy poured coffee, Grant lifted that chair and carried it to the wall. Sit here, he said. Every buyer saw the correction. Every buyer had also seen the delay. Beatrice moved because refusing would hand Ivy another spectacle. She sat beside Grant without making the distance between them smaller. Outside on the gallery, after the buyers began collecting hats and gloves, Grant stopped several paces from her. I should have moved the chair when we entered. Beatrice fastened one glove. You saw, yes, and you left me there. I thought challenging Ivy at the door would give Barton the quarrel he wanted. So you gave her the seat she wanted instead. Grant took the rebuke without defense. Yes. Barton stepped onto the gallery before he could say more. He raised his voice toward the ranch hands and townsmen gathering near the hitch rail. Next Thursday, September 15th, Cedar House will host any rider who wishes to hear honest terms for fall work. Buyers are welcome. No man should be kept from lawful employment because another man's household dislikes the offer. Ivy remained behind him, watching Beatrice. The invitation had shown Barton what he needed. Grant listened to his wife when walls protected his name. In public, one empty chair had been enough to make him hesitate. Next Thursday, Barton meant to learn what Grant would deny when the whole room asked him at once. Sua. By Thursday evening, Barton Crowell had arranged the Cedar House dining room so every ranch hand could hear the offer and every buyer could watch who answered it. The food looked fair this time. Roast beef, potatoes, cornbread, and coffee reached every table from the same platters. The seating told a different story. Red Prairie's hands sat on benches along the walls. Buyers and merchants occupied the center. Grant and Beatrice were placed near the front, visible enough to be judged from any chair in the room. Ivy had not hidden Beatrice beside the minister's sister. Tonight she wanted Grant's plain wife seen. Hugh Bell tasted the beef and gave no opinion. Eli Boone sat beside him, the red mark of his rope burn still crossing his palm. Token no. 19 remained sealed in the upper right drawer of Grant's office desk, folded inside the account Eli had read and signed. Barton waited until the plates were half empty before rising. Broken Spur needs experienced riders for a fall delivery north of Amarillo, he said. The route is shorter than Mercer's South Gather. The base wage is near the same. A man who agrees directly with Daniel Voss may receive $8 a head and board here while the crew forms. A murmur moved along the benches. Grant remained seated. Barton rested one hand on the back of his chair. 9 Red Prairie men have accepted Cedar House board tokens. Several have since been told those tokens mean nothing. Beatrice set down her fork. Told by whom? Barton faced her. You know who has been advising them. I know one man asked me what he had promised. And you answered for him. Eli stood. His hat remained in both hands. She didn't. Barton's gaze settled on him. You took number 19. I took it to hear the terms. You accepted the use of my board. I haven't eaten a meal or slept a night here. Hospitality, offered, still carries weight. Eli's fingers tightened around his hat brim. That isn't what you said before you put it in my hand. Barton gave a small, patient smile. And Mrs. Mercer taught you that good faith may be divided into whatever parts suit you. Eli glanced toward Beatrice. She gave him no signal. Mrs. Mercer told me the answer was mine. The room grew attentive. Barton turned to Grant. Do you permit your wife to advise hired men about leaving your ranch? My hands may hear advice from anyone, Grant said. That is not what I asked. Barton stepped closer to the center table. Who sets Red Prairie wages? I do. Who hires? I do. Who dismisses? I do. Who gives the work orders? Hugh and I. Barton nodded as though Grant had confirmed the only truth that mattered. Then what say does Mrs. Mercer have in any of it? The trap was plain. Grant held the last word on wages and hiring. Beatrice had never claimed otherwise, but Barton was not asking who signed the ledger. He was asking whether Grant would admit before other men that he listened to his wife. Grant's gaze reached Beatrice. She saw the answer before he gave it. My wife has no say in hiring or wages at Red Prairie. The sentence was calm, reasonable. It struck harder for both. Beatrice pressed her fingers flat against the linen napkin until it stopped moving beneath them. Ivy lifted the coffee pot and resumed pouring. Barton leaned back. Then the matter is settled. Beatrice rose. No, every face turned toward her. She left the napkin folded beside her plate. Grant Mercer sets the wages. He decides who works Red Prairie. I have never said otherwise. Barton spread one hand. Then we agree. I told him to pay every old balance before asking any man to stay. I told him not to raise wages because you frightened him with rumors. He listened. Grant's hand closed around the edge of the table. Barton's smile thinned. You admit interference. I admit I spoke about business that is not yours. The men's choices are not yours either. Several riders raised their heads. Beatrice turned toward the benches. Has any man here been ordered by me to refuse Broken Spur? No one answered. Has any man been told he will lose food, pay, or standing if he leaves Red Prairie? Again, nothing. Barton faced the buyers. A hired man seldom accuses an owner while the owner sits 10 feet away. Beatrice looked at him. That is true. The answer unsettled him more than denial would have. Then let them hear both offers where neither employer owns the room, she said. Use the sale yard. Leave the outer gate open. Broken Spur speaks first. Red Prairie speaks once after. Every man is paid what he has already earned before he attends. No one raises a wage after hearing the other offer. No man loses his good name merely for leaving. A buyer near Mr. Latham shifted in his chair. Barton's jaw tightened. You would make a public show of ranch business. You made this room public. And who keeps order in your sale yard? The man who owns it. Beatrice looked toward the yard owner seated near the rear. Not Grant, not Hugh, not you. The owner scratched his beard. First Saturday. I can clear the pens is October 1st, Mr. Latham folded his napkin. Will Daniel Voss come? Barton answered too quickly. If he sees need, there is need, Latham said. I want Broken Spur's terms from the foreman who can hire, not from the man selling rooms while riders wait. Barton's face hardened. My dealings are honest, then they will survive clear speech. Latham looked toward Grant. Will Red Prairie attend? Grant's gaze remained on Beatrice. Yes. Barton gave a dry laugh. So your wife sets the hiring now? She set the order for hearing it. And you accept that? Grant looked around the room at his hands, the buyers, and the empty space he had created beside his wife by denying what he had used. Yes. Beatrice felt no relief. He had corrected the process. He had not corrected the sentence. Eli remained standing against the wall. Mr. Crowell, he said. What did I promise? Barton turned. You promised to hear Broken Spur. I'm hearing it. And to stand by the board offered you. You told me that after I took the token. Barton's hand flattened against the table. A decent man knows food and lodging are not handed out for amusement. I never used either. You accepted the right to them. That isn't the same as accepting work. The room had reached the point Barton could not cross without admitting that the token's weight came from words added later. He looked to Grant instead. If your crew scatters while you indulge this delay, the loss is yours, Grant answered without turning toward the men. Yes, and if they stay, that answer belongs to them. The yard owner rose. October 1st. Outer gate open, no stock in the pens. Anyone who starts trouble leaves my ground. Broken spur first, Beatrice said. If Voss agrees, Barton replied. Voss will speak for his own outfit, Latham said. You need only deliver the message. The meeting broke apart slowly. Buyers resumed coffee. Ranch hands spoke in low voices along the walls. No choice had been made, yet the ground beneath every choice had changed. Beatrice left the dining room before Grant could offer his arm. He followed her onto the gallery and stopped several paces away. Harness buckles rang below as men prepared horses for the 12-mile ride home. Beatrice. She fastened one glove. You listened to me at home. Grant removed his hat. Yes, in town you pretended you had not. Yes. Why? His answer took longer than the others. I wanted the buyers to hear that I still held the last word. You do hold it. I used that fact to hide the rest. Beatrice finished the second glove. You protected your name. I did. At my cost, yes. He did not offer the room, Barton, or pressure as an excuse. It was cowardly. The admission did not restore what he had cut away. It kept him from asking her to call the wound smaller. I will not keep advising you behind closed doors if you deny hearing me outside them, she said. You should not. That is not punishment. I know. And I am not leaving Red Prairie tonight. Grant's eyes lifted, but he did not move toward her. You do not owe me that assurance. I am staying to finish what Barton began. He is turning working men into proof that one powerful man can take them from another. I want the gate open before any of them answers. What do you need from me? Pay every earned dollar before October 1st. Let Broken Spur speak first. State Red Prairie's terms once. Do not add money in the yard. Do not remind the men what the ranch has done for them. Do not speak falsely of anyone who leaves. Grant's jaw tightened. If 6 men go, the first sweep may run late. Then the rule will cost something. Yes. Will you keep it? I will. Do not ask whether that earns back my trust. I won't. Below them, Barton's voice carried from the hitch rail as he told buyer Red Prairie might soon lack a crew. Grant replaced his hat. The road home waited in the dark, but Beatrice did not offer him her arm. October 1st would test more than wages. It would show whether Grant Mercer could leave the gate open after he saw which men meant to ride through it. Sua. Before sunrise on Friday, Grant sent a rider to Cedar Wash to reserve the sale yard for October 1st. Though the message might cost him the rail delivery, it was meant to protect. The rider left under a paling sky with Grant's written terms folded inside his coat. By breakfast, every Red Prairie hand knew there would be no private meeting at Cedar House, no closed gate, and no answer demanded before both outfits spoke. Grant entered the dining room after Hugh Bell had filled the coffee cups. Beatrice sat near the west window with her plate before her. She had not spoken to Grant during the ride home the night before, except to answer questions about the team. He had stopped outside her south bedroom and wished her good night from the passage. The lock had turned after he walked away. Now 18 ranch hands watched him take his place near the stove. Mrs. Mercer set the order for October 1st, he said. I agreed to it. He did not call it his plan. He did not soften the statement with an explanation. Hugh leaned back against the sideboard. What do you need from us? An honest count. Not a promise. Grant rested one hand on the empty chair beside him. Who wants to hear both offers? 9 hands rose without much hesitation. Eli Boone's was among them. The rope burn across his palm had faded to a red line, though Hugh still kept him from the fastest horses. 4 men said they had not decided whether hearing the offer would help. 3 remained silent. Caleb Ward and Jonas Price exchanged a glance but raised no hands. Grant noticed. Caleb? Caleb rubbed one thumb along the edge of his cup. Broken Spur's route ends nearer my wife's people west of Amarillo. You mean to leave? I mean to hear whether the route is what Crowell says. Have you signed with Voss? No. Taken money? No, Grant nodded. Then you work here and earn wages here until you choose otherwise. Jonas kept his eyes on the table. Grant waited. I need the $8, Jonas said at last. For what? Hugh asked. Grant lifted a hand before Jonas had to answer. That part is his. Jonas looked up. I haven't signed anything. Crowell says the advance comes after Voss takes a man. Do you know the deductions? Grant asked. No. Then hear them before you count the money. Jonas gave a short nod. No promise. No shame. Hugh moved to the wall map, where the lower draws had been marked in pencil. If Caleb, Jonas, and 4 more experienced men leave, the first sweep runs 2 days longer at best. He tapped the southern section. More if the Dry Creek crossings give trouble. One of the buyer's letters lay folded on the sideboard. Everyone knew what Hugh did not need to repeat. Rail space would not wait forever. Grant faced the room. Latham cannot hold the pens past the first week of October without changing terms. How much does 2 days cost? Sam Reddick asked. Feed, Grant said. Extra wages. Possibly a lower price if the cattle miss the arrangement. Then why not raise our pay now? Orrin Pike asked. Several heads turned. Grant could have answered with Beatrice's reasoning and claimed it as his own. Instead, he looked toward her. Mrs. Mercer, the room held the question without mockery. Beatrice set down her cup. Because none of you knows what Broken Spur is actually offering. A raise made out of fear would turn your work into a bid. You deserve better than being priced by rumor. Orrin folded his arms. And if Broken Spur pays more, then Grant should decide whether Red Prairie wages are fair after the terms are known. Not because Barton shakes a box of tokens. Grant took a pencil from his vest and wrote on the breakfast tally sheet. No raises before the meeting, he said. Afterward, wages may be reviewed for the work itself. He did not say she had persuaded him. The fact was already visible. Hugh studied the 18 faces. Anyone afraid he'll be put off work before October 1st? Jonas glanced at Grant. I was. Are you now? Not if his word holds. The answer carried no praise. It carried a test. Grant accepted it. It will. Breakfast ended with no speeches. Men took plates to the wash table and went toward the corrals. Caleb left first, then Jonas. Neither received an easier horse, a poorer assignment, or a warning disguised as advice. Beatrice watched from the doorway as Grant handed Caleb the same South pasture list he had prepared the day before. The rule had begun costing something. That afternoon, Grant, Beatrice, and Hugh met in the office with the sale yard owner's reply on the desk. The yard was available. Empty pens could be latched. The outer gate could remain open. Grant unfolded a clean sheet. Who speaks first? He asked. Beatrice did not sit beside him. She took the chair across the desk. Hugh stood near the window. Broken Spur, she said. Grant wrote it down. Who controls the gate? The yard owner, not you. Not Barton. He wrote again. Food? Before either offer. Hugh raised an eyebrow. Why before? A hungry man listens differently. And who cooks it? Beatrice asked. Grant turned the paper so she could see the next line. A kitchen rotation ran from September 17th through October 1st. Hugh, Eli, Sam, Orrin, and 6 others had assigned days. Beatrice's name appeared twice. Once to cook by choice. Once to supervise stores. No blank space waited for her to fill if someone failed. You arranged this already? She asked. This morning, without asking whether I would rescue the meals. That was the point. Hugh rubbed his jaw. Tomorrow's beans belong to Sam and Eli. Do they know? They know now. Through the open window came Eli's voice from the yard. Hugh, how much salt? Hugh winced. Not enough to frighten a horse. That isn't a measure. Beatrice almost rose. Her hands left the chair arms, then stopped. Grant did not look toward the kitchen. They will learn, he said, or eat what they make. She remained seated. A poor pot of beans was not an emergency. The realization brought no forgiveness, but it gave his correction weight. Grant continued down the sheet. Speaking order, gate, meal, what else? No man should be called one at a time into a private room after both offers, Beatrice said. Choice at the yard? Hugh asked. Or later, she replied. A man may need time. Grant wrote that too. Barton will press for an answer before they leave. Then the yard owner stops him from pulling men aside. Hugh leaned over the desk. And if Barton says the tokens already answer? The room returned to number 19, sealed in the upper right drawer. Beatrice did not touch it. One token may show what one man agreed to, she said. Only if Eli permits it. It cannot speak for 11 others. Grant's pencil paused. Do we ask him now? No. Not until we know what Barton claims. That leaves us without proof. It leaves Eli with his own property. Grant wrote no line for the packet. Then it stays sealed. A wagon arrived near dusk with flour, lamp oil, and mail from Cedar Wash. Among the envelopes lay one in Ivy Crowell's narrow hand, dated September 19th. Grant broke the seal and read it beside the kitchen table, while Sam and Eli argued over the bean pot. The beans had gone soft on the outside and hard at the center. Beatrice ate them without comment. Grant handed her the letter. Cedar House had issued 12 trailboard tokens to Red Prairie men. Barton intended to present the tokens on October 1st as proof that 12 riders had accepted his hospitality and were therefore bound in good faith to hear Broken Spur before answering Grant. No names appeared, no numbers except the total. Hugh read the page over Beatrice's shoulder. 12. He claimed 9 last week, Grant said. Either 3 more took them, or the first number was never true. Eli sat at the far end of the table, his spoon suspended above the failed beans. Mine is 1. No one asked for the names of the others. Hugh folded the letter. Barton will set 12 pieces of cedar on that table and call them 12 promises. Beatrice placed the page beside her plate. Then we do not argue over how many pieces he has. Grant watched her. What do we argue? What each man was told before the wood changed hands. Eli lowered his spoon. The sealed account in the office could answer for number 19, but only if he allowed it. 11 other tokens remained untraced. Grant had opened the gate, paid the cost in advance, and begun giving Beatrice public credit. None of it settled the next question. On October 1st, Barton Crowell would arrive with 12 tokens and the power to name what they meant, unless the men carrying them chose to speak first. Mr. Latham's letter reached Red Prairie on Thursday, September 29th, with 1 day left before every earned wage had to be paid, and 2 days before Barton Crowell laid 12 cedar tokens on the sale yard table. Grant broke the seal in the office while Beatrice stood near the window, and Hugh Bell remained by the door. The buyer's hand was firm, the message brief. He would hold Red Prairie's rail place only through Saturday. If Grant could not show a workable crew by the end of the sale yard meeting, Latham would give the arrangement elsewhere. A late herd meant extra feed, more paid days on the range, and weaker terms when the cattle finally reached the pens. Near the bottom, Latham returned to the old complaint Hugh had mentioned weeks earlier. Another rancher had once claimed that Cedar House Board had been described as part of a work understanding only after one of his men had already eaten and slept there. No one had produced a signed paper. No rider had been willing to press the matter. Latham had done nothing then. This time he would accept no hiring terms repeated through Barton. Daniel Voss would have to speak for Broken Spur himself. Grant folded the letter once and reached for his hat. "Where are you going?" Beatrice asked. "Cedar Wash." "To do what?" "Ask Crowell whether he has been telling buyers my crew is already lost." "He has." Grant's hand remained on the hat brim. "Then I will ask what he means by 12. Obligations. Inside his hotel? Where else? Anywhere he does not choose the walls, the witnesses, and the meaning of every answer." Grant set the hat down, not gently. "Latham releases the rail place Saturday night. Then do not spend Friday giving Barton another quarrel he can sell." Hugh shifted near the door. "She is right about the room." Grant faced him. "You too. Crowell's hotel, Crowell's guests, Crowell's account of what happened after." Hugh nodded toward the folded letter. "We already have a yard." Grant's gaze moved to the upper right drawer. The sealed packet had remained there since September 1st. "One account," he said, "for 1 token. And only if Eli allows it," Beatrice replied. "Barton may claim all 12 men accepted the same. Then each man must answer for his own token. Some may not speak. That does not make Eli's truth belong to us." Grant paced once to the bookcase and back. The loss before him was real. 6 fewer experienced riders could delay the gather. A lost rail place could reduce the price of an entire herd. Yet the evidence closest to his hand had been entrusted to Beatrice by a 22-year-old rider who feared for his younger brother. Grant stopped. "Ask Eli to come." Hugh left for the bunkhouse. Beatrice did not open the drawer while they waited. Eli entered several minutes later with dust on his boots and the heeled rope burn, showing as a faint red line across his palm. He removed his hat. "Mr. Bell said you needed me." Grant placed Latham's letter on the desk. "The buyer will hold our rail place through Saturday. Barton intends to call 12 tokens accepted board obligations." Eli glanced at the drawer. "Mine is in there," Beatrice said. "Still sealed." Grant stepped away from the desk. "We need to know what you permit." Eli shifted his weight. You already know what happened. We know because you told us, Beatrice said. The packet is different. Would it help? It may show what one man was told and what one man did not accept. It cannot prove what happened with the others. Crowell will say I'm lying. He may, Grant said. The paper does not stop him from speaking. Eli studied the floorboards. What would you read? Beatrice answered before Grant could, only the factual lines. You accepted the token to hear terms. You used no board, meal, or room. You took no money, you signed no hiring, paper, and promised no work. Nothing about my brother, nothing. Not even if Crowell says I only stayed because the ranch gave me more. Your brother is not Barton's defense and not ours. Eli breathed out through his nose. Can I hold the token before I choose? Yes, Beatrice said. The packet will be opened only after you give permission at the yard. The token returns to your hand before anyone asks where you will work. Grant added, if you change your mind before it is opened, it stays sealed. Eli looked between them. Then you can use it that way. Say it plainly, Beatrice said. So no one mistakes a nod for permission, Eli straightened. You may carry the packet to the sale yard. You may open it there if I say yes. You may read those facts and no others. My brother stays out of it. Number 19 comes back to me before I choose. Grant inclined his head. Agreed. The upper right drawer remained closed. No one touched the packet that evening. On Friday, September 30th, the workday ended with 18 horses tied outside the office and 18 men waiting to receive money that already belonged to them. Grant had set the wage ledger on a table near the open door. Hugh stood beside him with the timesheets. Beatrice remained near the cabinet with the cash box, counting each amount twice before passing it forward. No one was asked where he intended to work after Saturday. Caleb Ward was called first. He entered with his hat under one arm and stopped when he saw his name at the top of the page. Thought you might save me for last, he said. Why? Grant asked. Man likely to leave ought to be the easiest money to delay. The work was done here. Grant turned the ledger so Caleb could see the figure. Read it. Caleb checked the days, horse allowance, and carried balance. Beatrice counted the bills into his hand. Correct? She asked. Correct. He folded the money and placed it in his vest. If Broken Spur's route is what Voss says, I may take it. Grant closed the ledger line with his initials. Then hear him. Caleb did not move toward the door. If I go, will you still shake my hand? Grant held out his hand then, before the choice. If it is your choice, Caleb took it. Jonas Price came second. He looked surprised to be called before Sam, Orrin, or Eli. Grant read the amount. Jonas checked it and accepted the bills. The $8 from Broken Spur still matters, he said. Then make Voss tell you what it costs, Grant replied. You won't add 8 tonight? No. Jonas nodded once and left with his earned wages secure. The remaining men came in by 2s and 3s. Each read his line. Each received the full balance through Friday. No pledge was demanded. 3 riders had spoken privately to Hugh during the week and admitted they might leave. Hugh told Grant only the number. He did not give names. Grant did not ask for them. Near sunset, Hugh carried a single sheet to the bunkhouse steps and read it aloud. Earned wages would not be held for a man who chose another outfit. Leaving Red Prairie by itself would not produce a false reference. No future day of work was presumed, merely because past work had been completed. Grant signed the bottom. Hugh posted the original inside the bunkhouse, where every rider could read it before morning. In the office, Grant made one signed copy for the sale yard and placed it on the desk. Beatrice brought out the leather case. Eli stood beside her. Grant waited near the door. The packet leaves the drawer now, Beatrice said. With both of you present. Eli nodded. She opened the upper right drawer and removed the sealed account. The wax remained unbroken. Eli read his name, the number, and the date across the front. Still mine, he said. Still yours. Beatrice placed the packet inside the leather case. Beside it went Grant's signed wage notice copy and the speaking order for October 1st. She checked each item aloud, closed the case, and fastened both straps. Then she handed it to Grant. You carry it, she said. You do not open it. I will not, if Eli asks for it before the meeting. I give it to him. Eli flexed his healed hand. I may. You may, Grant said. Outside, the original notice hung straight against the bunkhouse wall. Saddles were prepared for morning. 18 men would ride to Cedar Wash, but no one knew how many would return beneath the Red Prairie brand. Grant held the leather case containing evidence he had no right to open, while the wages that might have kept men obedient were already in their own pockets. Sua. The outer gate stood open when 18 Red Prairie riders entered the Cedar Wash sale yard on Saturday afternoon. Empty pens lined both sides of the packed earth lane, their gates chained back so no man could be mistaken for cattle brought in to be counted. The yard owner waited near the weighing platform with his thumbs hooked beneath his suspenders. "I own this ground," he said when the horses were tied. "I don't own any man's answer. No fighting. No dragging a rider aside before both outfits have spoken. Anyone who cannot manage that may leave through the gate now." Barton Crowell glanced at the opening behind him and stayed. Daniel Voss stood at his right, a lean foreman in a dust-gray coat. Ivy held Barton's account case. Mr. Latham and 2 other buyers occupied chairs near the empty pens. Grant carried the leather case from Red Prairie but kept it closed beside his boot. Before any offer was heard, the meal was served. Smoked beef, beans, squash, bread, and Mrs. Nettie Vale's pies came from the same tables for everyone. Her name stood on a card beside the pie tins. Beatrice had helped smoke the beef because she chose to. She removed her apron before sitting. Hugh, Eli, Sam, Orrin, Caleb, and the others filled benches without being divided by outfit or standing. Grant chose a chair 2 places from Beatrice and left the one between them empty. He did not ask whether the distance still belonged there. The yard owner finished his beans, wiped his mouth, and rose. Broken Spur speaks first. Barton stepped forward before Voss could move. Broken Spur offers a shorter northern route, wages near Red Prairie's rate, board while the crew forms, and $8 in ready money for a man who hires on. 12 Red Prairie hands have accepted Cedar House trail board tokens in good faith. He opened Ivy's case. Red cedar discs lay inside in 2 neat rows. A murmur passed through the benches. Jonas leaned forward. $8 in addition to wages? Barton smiled. $8 in a man's hand when he needs it. That wasn't my question. The details are ordinary. Then answer him, the yard owner said. Barton's mouth tightened. Daniel Voss will settle wages with each rider. Orrin called from the second bench. Does board come out of pay? Cedar House board is between a guest and the hotel. Before or after he takes one of those? Sam asked. Barton raised his voice. The tokens show a willingness to hear lawful work and accept the hospitality offered while considering it. Do they show employment? Beatrice asked. Barton turned toward her. They show good faith. That was not the question. Several men spoke at once. One wanted to know whether the route crossed the dry Canadian forks. Another asked who paid if water failed. A third held up a cedar token and demanded to know why Barton had called it a board token before taking it and an obligation afterward. Voss stepped forward. Barton caught his sleeve. Let me finish. The yard owner moved between them. You have finished telling another man's terms. Now let him tell them. Voss freed his arm without force. Broken Spur has a real delivery, he said. Smaller herd than Mercer's South gather. Shorter route if 2 water stops hold. They have been uncertain this season. Hugh folded his arms. If they fail, we swing east, adds time. How much? Could be half a day. Could be 2. Jonas pointed toward Barton. The $8. Voss nodded. Paid after a man agrees directly with me. $2 taken from each of the first 4 pay settlements. Jonas's face hardened. So it isn't extra. No. Barton spread his hands. Ready money is still ready money. Not when the man counting it thinks he keeps it, Jonas said. Another rider held up his token. Does this mean I agreed? No, Voss answered. It means Crowell marked you as interested in hearing terms. Barton stepped in. Interested men received board privilege. Did I authorize you to bind them to work? Voss asked. Barton's color rose. I never used the word bind. Did you send me their names as hires? Not yet. Then I have accepted no Red Prairie rider. The statement moved through the yard more sharply than a shout. Beatrice watched several men glance down at the cedar pieces in their palms. Partial answer. The tokens were not contracts. The larger question remained. How many men had carried them long enough to feel ashamed of returning them? Caleb stood. Where does the route end? Voss named a rail point west of Amarillo. How near the Ward place? Caleb asked. About a day's ride east, depending on your horse. Caleb sat again, his decision not spoken but closer. A rider near the rear lifted his plate. If a man already ate at Cedar House, does Broken Spur take the board from his wages? Voss shook his head. Not unless he agrees separately. Cedar House accounts are not mine. And if Crowell says eating there means a man owes Broken Spur a hearing is not employment. Barton turned toward Jonas. You wanted ready money. We can discuss what suits you. He took one step toward the bench. The yard owner blocked him with an arm. After Red Prairie speaks. Barton's voice went cold. The man is free to answer me. He is free after both offers. That was the order. Grant had not moved. His hands rested on his knees. Beatrice knew what it cost him to hear Caleb ask about his wife's family, and Jonas ask about the advance without interrupting. Cost did not excuse his earlier failure. It made the present choice real. She rose when the yard owner nodded to her. Before Red Prairie speaks, I have questions about the tokens. Barton gave a short laugh. You have no hiring authority. I have questions. She faced Voss first. When Mr. Crowell was allowed to seek riders, what was he permitted to promise? A chance to hear terms. Board if a man wanted to wait in town. Nothing beyond that. Was he permitted to call a token a work agreement? No. Was he permitted to accept a name for Broken Spur? No. Beatrice turned to the benches. Any man who used food, a room, money, or signed paper should say so for himself. No one else will answer for him. Barton opened his mouth. The yard owner pointed toward the gate. Barton closed it. Did anyone take the $8? Beatrice asked. No hand rose. Did anyone sign with Mr. Voss? None. Did anyone use a room because of a token? 2 men raised hands. Meals? 4. Were those charges written in the hotel book? Ivy answered from beside the account case. Yes. Then Cedar House may collect its honest bill. That is not the same as collecting a man's labor. Ivy's chin lifted. You turn every kindness into suspicion. No, I ask the price before the kindness changes names. Beatrice sat. Grant rose. He did not pace before the men or stand in front of the open gate. Red Prairie's south gather will be hard, he said. The lower draws are dry. The first sweep may run long. The base wage remains what is written in the ledger. Extra days will be paid. There is no advance tonight. Any man who leaves with his account settled will receive no false word from me. Barton smiled toward the buyers. A poor offer made respectable by his wife. Grant faced him. Before anyone chooses, I have another account to settle. He turned toward the riders. At Cedar House, I said my wife had no say in hiring or wages. I hold the last word. I used that truth to hide another. No one moved. I listened to her at home. In town, I pretended I had not. Paying old balances before today was her judgment. Refusing to bid against rumor was her judgment. The open gate and the order of speaking were her judgment. I agreed to each. My failure was denying that when buyers could hear me. He did not look at Beatrice for relief. He did not ask the men to admire him for confessing. Barton's face had gone still. You would weaken yourself before your crew to please one woman? I weakened myself when I lied about what I had used. Grant returned to his chair. Beatrice met the truth without giving him absolution. That is true, she said. Mr. Latham leaned forward. How many riders do you need to hold the delivery? 16 makes it workable, Grant answered. Fewer may not. How many will stay? I don't know. The buyer sat back. Grant had admitted risk without buying certainty. Eli rose from the bench nearest Hugh. The faint line of his rope burn showed when he opened his hand. Mrs. Mercer, you may open my packet. Grant lifted the leather case and placed it on the empty chair between himself and Beatrice. He did not unfasten it. She opened the straps, removed the sealed packet, and held it where Eli could see the wax. Still your permission? Yes. Read only what we agreed. She broke the seal. The red cedar disc remained folded inside the paper. Beatrice read the account without adding a word. Eli Boone accepted token number 19, only to hear Broken Spur's terms. He used no board, meal, or room. He took no money, signed no hiring paper, and promised no work. She did not mention Amarillo. She did not mention the 14-year-old boy sleeping over feed sacks. When she finished, she removed token number 19 and crossed the short distance to Eli. Yours? He took it. Barton stared at the disc. One account proves one man's conduct. Yes, Beatrice said. Nothing more. Her refusal to stretch the evidence left him without a false accusation to attack. Eli stepped into the open space between the Red Prairie table and the broken spur table. Behind him, the yard gate remained wide enough for a mounted man to pass without asking leave. Token number 19 lay in his palm. 16 riders were needed. 18 men had come. No one yet knew which road Eli would choose, or whether the first answer would give the others courage to name their own. Soa. Eli Boone closed his fingers around token No. 19, crossed the packed earth between the two tables, and laid the red cedar disc in front of Barton Crowell.
I agreed to hear the terms, he said. I've heard them.
I'm staying at Red Prairie. Barton stared at the token as if Eli had returned a debt unpaid. No one cheered. The yard remained full of horses shifting at the rail, tin cups on tables, and men who still had answers to give. Eli stepped back beside Hugh Bell. Orrin Pike rose next. He drew another cedar disc from his vest and placed it beside number 19. I took this after Crowell said bored while I listened. I didn't know the $8 came back 2 at a time. He faced Daniel Voss. Your offer may suit another man. It doesn't suit me. Fair enough, Voss said. Orrin returned to the Red Prairie bench. Sam Reddick did not have a token. He stood with his hat in one hand. I'm staying because I know Hugh's word, Mercer's horses, and the work waiting south. I don't know Broken Spur's water. He sat before anyone could turn the answer into praise. A rider near the rear came forward carrying token number 7. I've had this nearly 2 weeks, he said. Crowell called it a place at the table. Later he called it good faith. Today he called it an obligation. He set it beside the others. I won't carry a thing that changes meaning every time another man speaks. Barton's mouth tightened. No one compelled you. Then you won't mind taking it back. The man chose Red Prairie. After that, the decisions came without ceremony. One rider returned a token and stayed. 2 men who had never accepted cedar said they would remain through the South gather. Another merely touched 2 fingers to his hat in Grant's direction and said, I'll ride south. A silent rider from the breakfast count chose Red Prairie because his mare was settled there, and he trusted Hugh to rest her. When she needed it, he gave no longer reason. The number rose slowly. 11, 13, 15. Grant did not count aloud. Mr. Latham did it on the back of an envelope, marking each answer with a short pencil stroke. Caleb Ward stood when 15 men had chosen Red Prairie. His wages were already in his vest. Nothing remained for Grant to hold. Voss, Caleb said, the rail point you named is 1 day east of my wife's people, a fair day on a sound horse, and the work ends there if the herd reaches the pens. Yes, Caleb faced Grant. Then I'm taking Broken Spur. Grant rose. Your account was correct yesterday? It was. You have your full pay? I do. Grant offered his hand. Caleb took it. Safe work, Grant said. No warning, no reminder of years served. Caleb's shoulders lowered by a fraction. He moved to stand near Voss, not near Barton. Jonas Price rose last. His need had not vanished because the advance carried deductions. I understand the $8 now, he said to Voss. 2 back from each of the first 4 settlements. That is right. And the wage is near Mercer's, not above it. Right. I still need it. Voss nodded. Then we can write the agreement tonight. Jonas turned toward Grant. I'm going. Grant checked the ledger copy in the leather case, though he already knew the line. Your pay through yesterday is settled. Yes. Then safe work. Jonas accepted the offered hand. The choice cost Red Prairie 2 experienced riders. It also proved the gate had been open. One final man stepped forward and chose to stay. Mr. Latham counted the pencil marks again. 16 makes the gather workable, he said. Tight but workable. I will hold the rail arrangement. Grant inclined his head. Relief did not show in celebration. Hugh was already calculating how to divide the first sweep without Caleb and Jonas. Barton closed Ivy's account case around the returned tokens. A fine display, he said. Mercer keeps his crew because his wife feeds them, advises their pay, and turns ordinary hospitality into suspicion. Voss faced him. You were authorized to locate riders interested in hearing Broken Spur's terms, which I did. You were not authorized to call tokens agreements. I called them good faith. You were not authorized to accept names. I accepted none. Then there was no Reason to tell buyers 12 Red Prairie men had obligations connected to my outfit. Barton's face hardened. I run a hotel. Men who take rooms and meals owe honest payment. They do, Beatrice said. The hotel book can collect money honestly owed. It cannot collect a man. One of the buyers closed his notebook. From now on I will ask an owner or authorized foreman whether a crew is sound. The second buyer nodded. And I will take hiring terms from the man empowered to offer them. Latham folded the marked envelope into his pocket. Cedar House may still introduce interested riders. I will not treat Crowell's count as proof of a completed hire. Barton looked to Voss. You will discard 11 years of useful arrangements over one woman's objection. Over terms I did not authorize, Voss replied. You may send me men who want to speak. You may charge for rooms and meals they use. You will not promise for me or tell a rider what he owes my outfit. The consequence was commercial, not criminal. Cedar House remained Barton's. Its beds would still hold travelers. Its kitchen would still sell food. What ended was his ability to stand between a worker and an employer, change the meaning of an introduction, then sell the uncertainty to buyers. Ivy shut the account case with more force than necessary. This is what comes of allowing a woman without family standing to turn service into influence. Beatrice had removed her apron before the offers began. She stood now with empty hands. The men did not stay because I fed them. Caleb did not leave because Barton fed him. Jonas did not choose Broken Spur because I failed to persuade him. Ivy's chin lifted. You have made yourself central to every answer. No, their reasons belong to them, not to my table, not to your hotel. The words left no triumph for Ivy to attack. Grant stepped beside Beatrice but did not stand in front of her. There is one matter I will not leave unclear, he said. Buyers, riders, Barton, and Ivy could all hear him. I took my wife's counsel at home. At Cedar House, I denied that I had. I did it to protect my name before other men. The failure was mine. He did not mention the 16 who stayed. He did not use the outcome to make his conduct seem wise. Beatrice met his statement with the only answer she could honestly give. That is true. Not forgiveness, not rejection. Truth, mister. Latham approached Eli. Token number 19 still rested on Barton's table among the returned cedar pieces. I would like to keep the token, the signed account, and the opened envelope with my business papers, Latham said. Only if you agree. Barton's fingers moved toward the case. Eli reached the table first and picked up number 19. Why keep it? He asked. Because the account shows one precise event, Latham replied. A man accepted a hearing, used no board, took no money, and promised no work. It does not prove what happened to anyone else. It does show why I should demand terms from an authorized foreman. He removed a sheet from his notebook and wrote a short cover statement identifying the items and the purpose for retaining them. He handed it to Eli. Eli read slowly, following each line with his thumb. Nothing about my family? Nothing. And you won't call this a contract? No. Eli turned to Beatrice. Will you give it to him? Only if that is what you want. He placed the token in her palm. It is. Beatrice gathered the original signed account and the opened envelope. She transferred all 3 items to Latham in Eli's sight. Latham folded them inside his business papers and closed the leather folio. The signed copy of Grant's wage notice remained in the Red Prairie case. Nothing changed hands without being named. By the time the 16 Red Prairie riders left Cedar Wash, Caleb and Jonas had gone with Voss to write their Broken Spur agreements. Barton stood beneath the Cedar House gallery. While the returning horses passed, no one mocked him. Loss did not need applause to be real. The 12-mile ride carried Grant and Beatrice back beneath a cold, clear sky. He did not ask what his public admission had earned. At the ranch, Hugh took the crew toward the bunkhouse and began assigning horses for Monday's gather. Grant carried the leather case into the office. After midnight, when the house had gone still, he opened the lower cabinet and removed the wooden box bound with its narrow leather strap. 11 letters, Beatrice's photograph, and the pressed blue cornflower remained inside. He placed the box at the center of the desk between them. These belong to you, he said. Beatrice rested her fingers on the strap, but did not open it. The riders had been given wages before choosing a road. Grant had returned her public name before knowing whether it would save his crew. One question remained, larger than the others. Would he give his wife the same freedom he had finally allowed his men? "Sua, these belong to you," Grant said, and Beatrice kept her fingers on the leather strap while the house settled around them. The wooden box stood at the center of the office desk. 11 letters rested inside with her photograph beneath them, and the pressed blue cornflower between the first and second pages. Nothing had been removed. Nothing had been used against her. Grant crossed to the iron cash box beside the ledger cabinet and took out a folded packet of bills and coins. He counted them on the desk without placing them in her hand. "How much?" Beatrice asked. "Enough for the wagon to Cedar Wash, the fare to Amarillo, an eastbound train, and several months after that. You counted it? Twice." "Did you buy a ticket?" "No." "Why not?" "Because the train is not mine." He placed the money beside the wooden box. "It is yours whether you leave tomorrow, next month, or never." Beatrice studied the bills. They were not household money offered for an errand. They were not wages for cooking. Grant had set down the means to put hundreds of miles between them. "You are asking me to go?" "No. To stay. Not while staying depends on whether you can afford to leave." The words came without ceremony. "A road is no use if you cannot pay to reach the station." Beatrice opened the box. Her first letter lay on top, its fold worn pale where Grant had handled it. She had written those pages before knowing the width of his shoulders, the sound of his boots in the passage, or the restraint with which he stood outside a closed door. "You said these belonged to me. They began as yours. I sent them. That did not make them mine to keep if you no longer wanted me to have them." She lifted the photograph. "And if I take everything? Then you take everything. The flower?" Grant's gaze rested on the faded blue center. "Yours too." Beatrice set the photograph down. "You kept it because it was useless. Because you gave it without asking what it would earn. You could say the same of the letters." "I cannot." His hands remained at his sides. "I answered them because I wanted another." The lamp flame bent beneath a faint draft from the hall. Beatrice closed the box halfway but did not fasten it. "At the boarding house, the proprietor praised me whenever paying guests could hear him. He told them no one in 3 counties made biscuits as light as mine. He said I kept 26 men content through bad weather and late freight." Grant waited. "After supper, I carried every plate to the washroom. Mine was always there, beside the basin. Cold meat, grease turned white. Sometimes nothing but the heel of bread if a guest asked for seconds." Her thumb pressed against the edge of the box. "The first time I complained, he said a grateful woman ate what was left. The second time he reminded me that my room was under his roof. By the third, I understood the rule. Praise was for the dining room. Debt was for the kitchen." Grant's face tightened, but he did not interrupt with anger she would have to manage. "That is why I left cooking out of my letters," she said. "I knew what happened when usefulness entered a room before I did. People stopped seeing a woman. They saw meals not yet made. I did not know all of it. No, I should have understood more when you told me about the cold plate. Understanding is not the same as changing." "I know." Grant drew the empty chair away from the desk but did not sit. "I listened to you here because your judgment helped me. At Cedar House, I denied it because I wanted the buyers to believe I needed no one. I made you bear the cost of my name." Beatrice met the admission without easing it for him. "Yes, I cannot undo the chair or the words. No, I can stop repeating them. You began." Grant waited for the rest. "She named the evidence, not the intention. You credited me before the men chose. You paid Caleb and Jonas before they left. You shook their hands after they used the gate. You kept Barton from owning Eli's reason. You did not open the packet. Those things were required. Required things are often left undone." His mouth tightened at the truth. Beatrice placed the photograph back beneath the letters. "If I remain, the south room remains mine. Yes, the lock too. Yes, a kiss will not change that. No, cooking stays chosen work. If Hugh ruins beans, he may eat ruined beans. He will object. He may object while chewing." Grant's mouth almost curved. "Fair. House decisions are discussed. You do not ask my judgment here, and deny hearing it elsewhere." "Agreed." "Money does not end an argument." "Agreed. And you do not punish me with silence because my answer displeases you." Grant considered that longer. "I may need time before I speak." Time is not punishment if you name it. Then I will name it. Beatrice closed the box, leaving the strap loose. Those are my terms. I accept them. You do not know whether I am staying. No. You still accept them. They should have been true before you arrived. The office no longer felt like the room where Grant decided matters and informed others. Afterward, the money lay between them, sufficient for departure. The letters lay beneath her hand. The door stood open to the passage. Beatrice could take the box, return to her south room, and leave after sunrise. Grant would have to live with the freedom he had provided. I am staying, she said. His breath left him once, controlled but audible. He did not cross the desk. Because you want to? Because I want to see what this marriage becomes when I am not trapped inside it. Grant lowered his head, receiving both the choice and its condition. I began waiting for your letters before I knew what to call it, he said. Then I saw you cut the roast and refuse to let the cook stand hungry. I watched you protect Eli's confidence when it could have saved me worry. I watched you tell the truth even when it did not flatter me. He raised his eyes. I love you, Beatrice. I will not use that word to collect an answer. She had heard men praise her food with fuller voices. None had ever left her so free after speaking. Beatrice came around the desk. Grant remained where he stood. You may kiss me, she said. His hand lifted, then stopped before touching her cheek. She closed the final inch herself. His palm rested lightly against her face. The kiss was brief, warm, and without claim. Grant drew back first. He did not follow when she remained near him. Good night, Beatrice said. Good night. She placed the travel money beneath the 11 letters. The flower stayed between the first and second pages. Then she left the wooden box at the center of the desk where both of them could see it. On Monday, October 3rd, 16 riders left before dawn for the South Gather. Hugh divided the lower draws without Caleb and Jonas, and the work began tight but possible. The kitchen rotation held. At noon, Sam and Orrin burned a pan of biscuits black underneath while leaving the tops pale. Eli came to the porch to report the disaster. Mrs. Mercer, the bread's gone bad. Beatrice was reviewing pantry stores with Hugh. Who made it? Sam and Orrin. Then Sam and Orrin no. They asked whether you would make another batch. No. Eli glanced toward Grant, who was checking saddle lists at the dining table. Grant continued writing. Are we eating burned biscuits? Eli asked. You may scrape them, Beatrice said, or go without bread. At dinner, every cook ate what he had made. No one starved. The next batch improved. Grant returned after dark, with dust worked into his collar and fatigue dragging at his steps. He stopped outside Beatrice's south bedroom. The door was open by 3 inches. The first sweep reached the dry creek, he said from the passage. 2 strays lost, no injured men, and tomorrow? West draw before sunup. You should sleep, I intend to. He did not enter. He did not ask whether the kiss entitled him to cross the threshold. Good night, Beatrice. Good night, Grant. His boots receded toward the north room. On Tuesday afternoon, while the riders worked west, Beatrice took a measuring cord into the dining room. The tables used since the wedding were too short and too narrow. One placed buyers above hands. 2 placed half the meal outside the conversation. She stretched the cord from the west window toward the east. Grant entered, carrying a stack of buyer correspondence. What are you measuring? A longer table. How long? Nearly window to window. He studied the room. His mother's dark sideboard occupied the center of the east wall and blocked the final 4 feet. That will have to move. Yes. Grant set down the letters. Where do you want it? Beatrice pointed toward the north wall, where the morning sun would not strike the wood. He took one end. She took the other. The sideboard was heavier than it appeared, built from thick oak and filled with serving pieces no one had used in years. They lifted together, carried it across the room, and lowered it where she had chosen. The open space between the windows was not yet a home, only room for one. That was enough for the day. Sua. The long table reached nearly from the west window to the east, with no chair set above another, and no place reserved for a head. Grant had built it through the winter with Hugh Bell and 2 ranch hands who argued about joints as earnestly as they argued about horses. The first time Beatrice sat at it, one leg rocked beneath her elbow. Grant had offered to drive a wedge under the foot. "A table meant to last should not begin by pretending it stands straight," she had said. He removed the leg and made it again. Now the boards rested level beneath a spring's worth of cups, dust, ledger sheets, and meals prepared by whoever had agreed to prepare them. On Saturday, May 13th, the window stood open to new grass rising between last year's brown stalks. 16 horses waited near the corral after a shortened day's work. Inside, Hugh stirred beans while Eli Boone and 2 volunteers shaped bread at the sideboard. Beatrice had chosen to smoke the beef herself. Choosing altered the labor. It did not make the wood lighter or the heat kinder, but it kept the work from closing around her, like a room without a door. Grant stood beside a cutting board with an onion in one hand and a knife in the other. The pieces before him ranged from thin slivers to chunks large enough to survive the pot untouched. Beatrice inspected them. "Those will not cook together." Grant considered the board. They came from the same onion. Hugh leaned over the bean pot, a convincing defense if we intended to eat the onion whole. Beatrice lifted one thick piece between 2 fingers. "Would you put this and that thin one under the same saddle strap and call the load even?" Grant gathered the pieces into a bowl. "I will cut them again. You could give the work to someone else." "I could." He set another onion on the board. "I made the first mess." He began again. Beatrice left him to it. He did not turn the correction into an apology or a display. He recut the onions because supper required onions cut properly. By 6, the bread cooled beneath cloth. Hugh's beans had thickened, and the smoked beef rested on a wooden board. Beatrice washed her hands, untied her apron, and hung it on the peg beside the kitchen door. Eli saw her do it. Instead of asking whether she meant to serve, he carried the bread to the table. Hugh took the carving knife. 2 other men brought beans, onions, and plates. The cook sat with everyone else. No one waited at the wall. No one received the last cold scraps. Beatrice chose the chair nearest the west window. Grant sat across from her, not beside her, because conversation traveled better that way. Hugh opened the general mail while the bread passed from hand to hand. There were notices about seed, freight, harness leather, and a delayed shipment through Amarillo. Near the bottom lay a stiff handbill printed in new black type. Hugh held it toward the lamp. "Cedar House has a Saturday beef supper," he said. "Rooms for seasonal crews. Stable space." Sam Reddick reached for the salt. "Anything about work?" Hugh read the final line. "No work obligation attached to board." Several men glanced along the table. Grant did not. He spooned beans onto his plate without counting who smiled, who frowned, or who might still prefer a hotel dining room. Hugh folded the handbill once. 12 miles to Cedar Wash. "Anyone want to ride for hotel beef?" No one raised a hand. Orrin Pike tore a piece of bread. "Mrs. Vale still making apple turnovers?" "Likely," Beatrice said. "Then ask again when the flour wagon goes." A few men laughed. Their refusal was not an oath to Red Prairie. Cedar House remained open. Its rooms served travelers. Its kitchen sold honest food. Barton Crowell could still introduce a rider to a foreman willing to meet him. What he could no longer do was stand between a man and the terms, then rename hospitality after it had been accepted. No one needed to say this aloud. Tonight the ranch table was ready. The cooks were seated. The food carried no hidden account. Hugh placed the handbill beside the mail. Word came through Amarillo about Caleb Ward. He found work near his wife's people. "Good," Grant said. Eli reached for another slice of beef. "Jonas finished the Broken Spur delivery," Hugh replied. "Took another trail contract this spring." "Then the $8 did what he needed," Beatrice said. Grant set down the onion bowl. After he knew what it cost, the difference mattered. Caleb and Jonas had not been punished for leaving. They had not been proven foolish by the ending. Their roads had led elsewhere, as honest roads sometimes did. Hugh lifted his coffee cup to Mrs. Mercer, whose cooking made town food unfit for sensible men. Several cups began to rise. Beatrice left hers on the table. "No." Hugh lowered his. "No, my cooking did not make Cedar House food poor. It did not choose anyone's work. It did not earn another person's freedom." Her gaze traveled across the bread Eli had helped shape, the beans Hugh had tended, and the onions Grant had cut twice. "Then what am I drinking to?" Hugh asked. "You began the toast. A man ought to be allowed one mistake before coffee." He considered, then raised his cup again. "To the woman who made choice hard to ignore." Beatrice lifted her cup. Grant raised his only after she did. "And to the men who used it," she said. Cups touched wood. No cheer followed. Beatrice ate while the beef was hot. After supper, the cook stayed seated while others cleared the table. Hugh carried platters. Eli gathered cups. Grant lifted the bean pot and took it into the kitchen without waiting to be thanked. Later, Beatrice and Grant crossed to the office. Mr. Latham's acknowledgment remained filed with the autumn papers, confirming that token number 19, Eli's signed account, and the opened envelope stayed among his business records with Eli's consent. Grant's copy of the wage notice rested with the ledger. The wooden box still occupied the center of the desk. 11 letters lay inside with Beatrice's photograph and the travel money beneath them. The money had not been spent. Grant had not reclaimed it. During the winter, they had removed the cornflour together and placed it beneath glass with 2 copied lines from her first letter. "There are few blue things here. I thought you might keep one." The flower now hung above the desk, gray at the edges and blue at the center. Grant closed the ledger. "Tomorrow?" he asked. Tomorrow held another meal, another range decision, another chance to disagree, repair, rest, or close a door. Beatrice picked up the lamp. Tomorrow. In the east passage, both bedroom doors still carried locks on the inside. Grant stopped between them and offered his hand, palm upward. He did not reach for her. Beatrice placed her hand in his because she chose to. Together they returned toward the dining room, where equal chairs waited around a level table. Clean cups stood ready for morning, and the road, hidden beneath 11 letters, remained open, unused, and real.